it's a really good segue to talk about the couple of things that I was thinking about as I was looking back at what the colloquias meant and what all of those discussions early on from all of us that were involved in the Finding Partner Schools really wanted to do with this series. And the word that really encaptures that is collaboration. Collaboration is the lifeblood of any industry, and fashion is no exception. It's a well-known saying that no one succeeds alone. And in fact, life is a series of collaborations and interactions. Some of them are planned and some of them are very serendipitous. Sharing research, creating synergies, and new opportunities for collaborative enterprise is the foundation of this colloquia series, and with the goal of gathering together at international venues to share a variety of perspectives on our shared topics of interest. And as we begin the day together today, I wanted to revisit that moment that was really serendipitous for us back in June 2011 when Shelley Fox and I met with Francis Corner and Ian Keane at a coffee shop in Oxford Circus. We listened as Ian talked about the silos of untapped information that he felt existed among the various stakeholders within the fashion system, the trade councils, the academic institutions, local government, and the designers within the industry itself. These players cross paths twice a year during Fashion Week, but other than that, they operate in isolation from one another. All are responding to needs, sometimes at odds with one another, and other times headed in the same direction. Out of this conversation, a new partnership was born and a shared goal emerged to create a platform that would bring these collective voices together. Hosted by 4 academic institutions, timed with Fashion Week in 4 fashion capitals, and inclusive of the 4 trade councils from each city. As a result, the Fashion Colloquia was formed and Domus Academy, Institut Français de la Mode, joined London College of Fashion Parsons as the founding partners. That was the vision, and here we are in New York today, number 4 in the series, and we will hear from Ian tomorrow about future plans for the next cities that will continue to pick up where we have left off. London, Milan, and Paris have gone before, each with their particular focus, representing a specific point of view of each fashion capital, with topics that address their own specific questions. London launched, as Joel mentioned, in September 2011, and they looked at the future of London Fashion Week, an empirical examination of menswear, and engaged in a discussion of the death of the image. Milan picked up the conversation in March 2012, and topics included time versus creativity, constraint or stimuli, fashion weeks, calendars, the fashion system, and intangible values, new and evolved professions, and a new balance between creativity and industry. Paris followed in October of 2012 and addressed the value of know-how, of fabrication of products, along with considering who the new artisans are in an age of technology. Panelists also discussed the role of fashion capitals in the reinvention of design. At each colloquy, academic papers and Pechakucha presentations provide opportunities to hear from academics on a wide variety of topics. Here in New York, we will look at collaboration, craft, local production, urban architecture and fashion within the context of the city, digital technologies and their impact on fashion, and the future directions of fashion industry and the academy. Our academic papers will address the following 3 themes: heritage and identity in fashion, the globalization of internalization of fashion, digital technologies and their impact on fashion. As Simon mentioned earlier, I think that oftentimes New York gets a bad rap for being commercial, and commercial has a very negative context. As we think of each fashion capital, we are all simultaneously local and global, but with distinctive characteristics that define us. And New York often bristles at its commercial moniker, but fashion is, after all, a business, and creativity and commercial viability do not necessarily have to make strange bedfellows. When a designer possesses a combination of both creative vision and business acumen, it's a potent combination. Indeed, as we advance our undergraduate curriculum here at Parsons, we intend on broadening our business offerings in order to better prepare our students to develop their skills in this area, to augment their creative vision. As we move through the colloquia series, we are speaking to the strengths of each city, and indeed those of each institution. It is our goal to learn from one another and create new synergies and opportunities for future collaborative enterprise. New York's strength, as you have seen from Simon's presentation, is its entrepreneurial spirit coupled with its ability to collaborate across a variety of sectors. I'd like to take a closer look at several initiatives within the context of local government, the industry, and education. But first, for some statistics. The fashion industry in New York employs 173,000 people, accounting for 5.7% of the city's workforce and generating $10 billion in total wages. Home to more than 75 major fashion trade shows, plus thousands of showrooms, fashion is a major player in sustaining New York's economic growth. In January 2010, Mayor Bloomberg and NYC EDC, the New York City Economic Development Corporation, launched Fashion NYC 2020, a strategic study to examine the challenges facing the fashion industry. As a result of surveys across over 500 industry professionals, NYC EDC developed a suite of 6 initiatives to maintain and enhance New York City's position as a global leader in fashion. Several of these initiatives saw city government partnering with local design schools to bring them into fruition. Once again, collaborative enterprise was underscored by critical strategies. The 6 initiatives are, firstly, the Fashion Production Fund that assists emerging designers with their initial production cycles and enables them to assess capital for production financing and local production resources. Project Pop-Up, it seeks to maintain New York City's position as a retail leader. This annual competition promotes new and innovative retail concepts, both online and off, including apps or apparel. The Project Pop-Up NYC competition in 2012 recognized and rewarded emerging, innovative New York City-based fashion retailers and fashion-related technology companies. Winners received 1 month of free trial or showcase space within the Chelsea-based retailer Story, with 100% of the sales going to the winning companies. The store opened during New York Fashion Week through the end of September, and winners received a toolkit of business services including PR and marketing support, mentoring from industry leaders, and exposure at key industry events. The New York City Fashion Fellows is a joint initiative of the 92nd Street Y that launched last month. This year-long fellowship program is designed to highlight the rising stars in fashion management. 20 up-and-coming fashion fellows will receive executive-level mentoring and networking opportunities with industry professionals to accelerate their careers. The class of 2013 will benefit from the roster of fashion-focused programming offered by the 92nd Street Y, including the Stylecaster State of Style Summit, the Fashion Icon series with Fern Malice, and Captains of Industry series of interviews with business leaders. Design Entrepreneurs NYC is a joint initiative with Fashion Institute of Technology and offers a free intensive mini MBA summer program that equips selected fashion designers with the skills they need to successfully run a fashion label, including marketing, operations, and financial management. The program kicked off in 2012 with an orientation session followed by 3 consecutive weekends of intense instruction led by industry experts and FIT faculty. Participants worked to write, refine, and finalize their business plans and presented these to a panel of industry leaders. The last 2 initiatives were hosted and partnered by us here at Parsons New School for Design. The first is Fashion Draft New York City. This is a talent recruitment program that consisted of a structured interview week that brings a select group of top business-minded college seniors from around the world to New York City to network and interview with fashion executives, with a chance to earn full-time management track positions within one of the participating New York-based companies. The participating companies included Armani Exchange, Bloomingdale's, Gilt Group, Calvin Klein, and Saks Fifth Avenue. The inaugural Fashion Draft NYC took place in February last year, and 25 students were selected out of 350 applications received from art and design schools and universities across the country. Students participated in a 3-day program, and aside from the interviews, they received a behind-the-scenes company tour, keynote address from a prominent fashion industry, and attended a networking dinner. Of these students, nearly 30% found employment to date as a result of their participation in the program. This includes executive track positions in business, sales, marketing, and merchandising for companies including Gilt, Saks Fifth Avenue, Li & Fung, Theory, and Macy's. The second initiative that Parsons hosted was called Fashion Campus NYC. This is a free education and networking program that helps interested university-level interns jumpstart their careers in the business side of New York City's fashion industry. It included interviews and discussions with designers such as Rachel Roy, Chris Benz, and Derek Lamb, who shared their valuable knowledge freely with the new crop of design hopefuls. The first annual event was in July of 2011. It was an overwhelming success with nearly 200 students for more than 90 universities and 150 companies attending the event, as well as fashion industry representation for more than 25 New York-based companies, including Aristotle, Gilt, Lord & Taylor, Calvin Klein, and Macy's. The 2012 Fashion Campus New York City included a backstage pass, panel discussion with young fashion business professionals working in finance, sales, product development, marketing, and buying. Ready to Work was a networking breakfast providing students with unparalleled access to industry leaders and hiring managers. And a tailoring approach was a breakout session by career path, allowed students to meet with career services and industry professionals. The weekend concluded with a keynote address by designer Rachel Roy. Another initiative of the NYCDC was in partnership with Council of Fashion Designers for America, which is our local trade organization here in New York, which comprises of 350 US designers. The CFDA Fashion Incubator was launched to support the next generation of great designers in New York City. The organization is providing the CFDA with a 3-year, $200,000 grant to help establish the incubator, with the goal of it being self-sustaining after a 3-year period. The incubator is located in the heart of New York City's Garment Center, and each company is a separate state-of-the-art design studio, providing both work and showroom space. Selected designers are offered a 2-year lease at a below-market rate. The CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund was established in 2011. The Council of CFDA and Vogue magazine created an endowment to support the next generation of American fashion designers. With monies raised, the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund generates an annual income to support these 3 designers with business mentoring. Award recipients are selected by a committee of industry experts based on exceptional design, demonstrated talent in fashion design, and their potential for future distinction in the fashion industry. One winner receives $300,000, and 2 runners-up each receive $100,000 to pursue their own independent design plan. Here you see the winners from 2012. Joseph Altazaro took home the first prize, and Creatures of the Wind and Pamela Love were the runners-up. I think these initiatives showcase how industry and local government are working together to support young designers and represent a substantial investment in the city's emerging talent. At Parsons School of Design, as you've seen from Simon's presentation, collaboration with industry is something that sits parallel with the classroom experience. We're fortunate enough to have the opportunity to engage in a number of partnerships that benefit the students and underscore their learning within an external context. One such project that I'd like to speak about, which Simon already referred to in his presentation, was the LVMH partnership, mainly because it heralds a return to craftsmanship. Just to give you some of the details, there was 2 schools at Parsons. We have 5 different schools, and School of Fashion has 4 programs underneath the umbrella. The other school that we partnered with was Art, Media, and Technology. We had 23 teams of 5, which equals 115 students to manage. 1-year-long partnership, 2 team leaders, Mishi Pagulayan from AMT and myself from Fashion. That was the year my hair turned white. LVMH paired teams with local artisans, including such as calligraphers, luthiers, metal workers, stained glass artists, or puppet makers, and more. Student teams comprised of fashion, product design, digital communications, and they were charged with submitting a video pitch inclusive of their process. It was, as Simon referenced, a really incredible opportunity for students to really start to work with peers in other programs. For us here in New York, our location at the fashion school is uptown on 40th Street, and you're, as you see here, on the downtown campus. So we're geographically removed from the rest of the university, and our students often work in a silo. So this was the first major project where students were starting to collaborate across programs with their peers in digital technology and product design. And it was an incredible experience for them. A presentation, as Simon mentioned, was held at Middle Studios during Fashion Week, showcasing final garments and the team's videos. This was one of the initial submission sketches from one of the teams where they were looking at furniture and drawing initial ideas from that. And this is another image from, obviously, the frame maker and just showing up close and personal his actual craft. The students spent a number of months going to the artisans' workshops, really looking at how they worked and really interviewing them, getting a sense of their process, and then responding to that and creating a video documentary and a final garment that really represented how they felt the artisan was working. This is a photograph showing one of the stills from one of the rooms in the curated exhibition that followed in Governor's Island, where there's a series of homes around a village green, and all of the pieces and the videos were there installed. And we had this beautiful party in the evening, and everybody was able to go through the homes, and that stayed up for public viewing for a number of times. Moving from that, I think that there are a number of things that are really, that was a project that happened a number of years ago, and it was something that really, as Simon mentioned, LVMH brought to our attention, of really wanting to look at local artisanship and really revisit craftsmanship in that context. And since then, I've just noted that there has been a real shift in a number of ways. One such support is the Wingate Fellowship Award Program, which is an example of an organization who really values and embraces the voice of the next generation of designers within the context of craft. Every year, the Center awards $15,000 of Wingate Fellowships to 10 graduating seniors with extraordinary skill in craft, one of the largest awards offered nationally to art students. The Center was founded based on the findings of a 1994-95 study commissioned by the Educational Committee of Handmade in America that recommended a new organization with a broad vision of craft, creativity, and design as interrelated components applied through education, industry, and commerce. The mission of the Center of Craft, Creativity, and Design is to advance the understanding of craft by encouraging and supporting research, scholarship, and professional development. The Center's program strives to support the best examples of research and practice in the field. Similarly, the mission statement of the Handmade in America speaks eloquently of a new desire to return to an integrity of process and the making of meaningful design. Quoting from their site, they say, "In a world of mass manufacturing and throwaways, Handmade in America celebrates the rich traditions of craft. We believe in the power of the handmade to transform individuals and communities, building partnerships and economies that are rooted in the culture that nourishes them." Within the BFA Fashion Design program here at Parsons, we are witnessing a renaissance in craft as fashion students seek to innovate through making. This seems to be an obvious statement when speaking about fashion, certainly with an international audience, but we have made a distinctive shift away, as you heard about those of you who were here last night, from a rote approach to design that unconsciously subscribes to a draw it, make it philosophy. Even within this system, students find ways to create their own fabrics, print their textiles, and develop ideas in a variety of ways. The following work is an example from Madeleine Provost, who's a BFA senior in Timo Riesenen's class, one of two candidates representing Parsons in the final round for consideration for this year's Wingate Scholarship. Madeleine's work incorporates craft traditions, materials, and their sensibilities into her foundational approach to design. Specifically, her work focuses on the relationship between craft and sustainability within the context of fashion. She exemplifies a new generation of designer who is interested in slowing down the process of textile and garment production by employing handwork rather than machine techniques and embracing the imperfection of the process itself. Madeleine believes that, quoting her, "Humans have the ability to change and discover, while machines can only repeat. Working by hand allows for much more control over the process, as well as for innovation through error. Mistakes inform new design and forms that otherwise could not be realized by machines. Imperfection gives textiles personality, creating a unique relationship between the garment and the wearer. Authentic intentionality informs the very core of the design process itself for Madeleine. True to the materials used, she often derives the form and design of a textile or garment from their inherent qualities, how a fabric drapes, holds its shape, etc. She says of her process, "I'm exploring these possibilities and the ways in which my craft can manipulate and enhance these qualities through my senior thesis work. I'm interested in how clothing assumes human characteristics when worn, and how my role as a designer can further affect these characteristics in a garment through researching physical and psychological processes of the human body." Inherently, the craft process and an embrace of traditional techniques inform Madeleine's work. One such example is her exploring of smocking, a technique in which hand stitching gathers and adjusts finely pleated fabric into cellular formations and intricate folded patterns. Madeleine sees this as a system of tacking that provides flexibility, creating new surfaces and forms with fluctuating movement and organic properties similar to those of the human organ system. She continues to manipulate traditional techniques to create innovative silhouettes by exploding and minimizing the scale of the smocking that leads to unique explorations of this familiar technique, recontextualizing it within a new contemporary application. Madeline is not only committed to the development of her own work, but evidences a new commitment towards establishing a Made in America label that seeks to employ local workers in the handmade production of goods, once again restoring a future of making within the local community. This example is representative of a shift towards creating a more intentional approach to design philosophy, a move towards developing a personal visual language and articulating not only a design identity, but also a point of view that speaks holistically to the entire process of design itself. This return to craft and making has become more central to the fashion design ideation process. Oftentimes, students who do not engage with the 3D process opt for a back, front, or front-only design approach, forfeiting the opportunity to discover new ideas that speak to the body in 360. Self-reflection and ownership of the process is critical, along with a new emphasis and investment in research that drives design forward. One such student that evidences a more thoughtful approach is Francesca Miranda, who's a junior or third-year student in the BFA program. These images show her final garment from last semester that involved a series of fabric manipulations and a combination of textures. Francesca comments on her own process. When I design, I take an intangible and make visual art. I question the imperfections of human qualities and the effect they have in the relationships that we encounter. For the fall 2012 360 project, Francesca based her collection on the French architect Jean Nouvel's apartment building in Chelsea. Located on the west side, this geometric curtain of windows covers the curved structure towering over its famous neighboring Frank Gehry building. And Francesca comments, geometric patchwork and structural silhouettes dominate, combined with a modern aesthetic of all glass and stainless steel in combination with a desire for classicism. I incorporated classicism because it is my way of integrating my suppressed aesthetic of my interpretation of what's beautiful. I find beauty in things of tedious technique, parentheses, the lost arts, things that have life and tell a story that aren't apparent to the immediate glance. Within this struggle of opposing aesthetics, I see myself as a mediator. Megan Spielman, a senior in the BFA program, has also created her own woven textiles as part of her senior thesis collection. These two examples are from her woven textiles portfolio project that was inspired by the many barns she saw while home in Montana. Megan comments, I hope to translate the graphic nature of the barns in a winter setting. Each textile began as a painting, which was then translated into a weaving of the same scale and size. The samples were done on a table loom and share the same basic warp. While the samples themselves are a unique product, they are also intended to represent a pattern that could ultimately be translated into full lengths of fabric. I think these examples show that old hierarchies need to be subverted, and there's a need to recognize the various makers within the design system, and a greater commitment is required to developing emerging talent across all levels within the fashion field of design, inclusive of creative pattern makers, drapers, textile designers, and indeed new hybrid models that don't yet exist. As discussed last night, we are training students to be design thinkers and makers, to push boundaries forward, to innovate new forms and new ways of creating fashion by seeking to develop an individual voice, a designer with their own process. Collaboration is ingrained in the fashion system. The designer is one amongst many players: pattern makers, sample makers, stylists, photographers, models, show producers, merchandisers, buyers, retailers, consumers, contributing to a never-ending series of collaborators who create the final product. Re-entering into this system, craft has become a fundamental catalyst for collaborative initiatives that seek to create community and a sense of history and storytelling. Following are two examples of craft-centered collaborative research projects. The first is entitled Work Circles, undertaken by Pascal Gatzen, Associate Professor of the Body Garment in our Integrated Design Program here at Parsons, and developed in collaboration with Kathy Leibowitz and Ruby Hoet. Work Circles is a research project with the goal of imagining more cooperative futures, specifically looking into prototyping models for cooperative production. Work Circles began at a space entitled This Red Door on January 19th and 26th last month, where artists worked on a collaborative quilt and facilitated conversation between the participants on more cooperative ways of living and notions of ownership, referring back to and emerging from the collaborative work that we are engaged in. Work circles will continue in other locations on a monthly basis, prototyping different models and systems of co-creation and co-production, working towards viable and economical sustainable alternatives to alienated forms of work and production, such as division of labor, work that doesn't directly contribute to our livelihoods, etc. These events are centered around togetherness, a shared presence, and speak to a commitment to building community within the context of work. The last two slides showcase Local Wisdom, an international fashion research project exploring the craft of use with the aim of amplifying initial findings through design. Parsons is one of 7 partner universities. The project was started by Kate Fletcher, reader in sustainable fashion at London College of Fashion, and was brought to New York with the help of Timo Rissanen, assistant professor of fashion design and sustainability at Parsons. The first slide shows on-site interviews with Kate on campus here at Parsons on the 26th of January. The second visual shows 2 participants from previous iteration of Local Wisdom. The first young woman on the left tells her story about her garment. Well, this is a knitted cardigan jacket in wool, and it was knitted by my great-grandma. Her name was Sigrid as well. She's the one that I got my name from. I'm the 4th generation that used it. I really like the colors, and it's really high quality, but I think it's been passed down because we know that she has put so much time into making it. The gentleman on the right tells his story. I call this my 3-stage jacket. It began about 40 years ago as a very slim waistcoat that was given to me. So I put a knitted panel into the back just to be able to fasten it together at the front, you see. And then about 15 years ago, I started going to sessions of an international folk dancing group in Chorlton near Manchester. So in order to have a jacket appropriate for the Balkans, I added sleeves, a collar, and some trimmings. And then only about 5 years ago, I became a bit too big to button it up, so I added latchets across to it, you see, and that's how it is at the moment. We all have these stories. They form our history, and they inform our future. There is something in the air, a return to craft, a yearning for community, for a design process that is driven by authenticity, intentionality, and a respect for history, both personal and public, local and global. We are all participants in this process, this new collective zeitgeist of our own making. Welcome to the story. Thank you.